Morning, everyone. Let me know if you can hear me.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. It's almost 11:20 now. Let's start. I'll start with attendance and then we start with the lecture. Sasank, Lakshmi KV, Meghna HS, Pratika BM, Sri Raksha, Kishore, Naidal, Nitish, Nishchita.
Sir, Naidila present, sir.
Speak loudly.
Sir, Nishchita present, sir.
Nitish,
Oh,
Nishchita,
Meghana is present, sir. Sir, Nishchita also present, sir.
Nikita.
Sir, Chaitra present, sir.
Who?
Sir, Nikita present, sir.
Chaitra, sir. Revising 17.
Let me look at that. Nicholas.
Present, sir.
Sir, Shri Raksha present, sir.
I'll come to that. Neha,
Present, sir.
Monica MKL, Meghna Jia.
Present, sir.
People who are keep their mic silent. Nikita, maybe your mic could be. Can you put it off? Can you shut down your TVs, please? Nikita, are you in a class or doing something else? Meghna ji,
Present, sir.
Meghna CV, Manjunath, Lokesh, Lavanya, Pratika,
Present, sir.
Kirti,
Present, sir.
Kavita, Karthik,
Present, sir.
Karan,
Yes, sir.
Indrasena,
Present, sir.
Harshita, Hanumesh, Priyanka,
Present, sir.
Gautam, Ganesh,
Present, sir.
Ganesh GB,
Present, sir.
Divya,
Present, sir.
Deepika,
Present, sir.
Dikshita, Darshan, Chinna Keswa,
Present, sir.
Darshan, Chandana, Chaitra,
Present, sir.
Bhavesh,
Present, sir.
Lakshmi,
Present, sir.
Ashish,
Present, sir.
Anusri,
Present, sir.
Anusha, Anup, Amrita,
Yes, sir. Anu
Present,
present.
sir.
Amogha,
Present, sir.
Amogar,
Present, sir.
Akshita, Akshata,
Present, sir.
Abhishek,
Present,
Afrin,
sir. Sir, Abhishek.
Excuse me, sir.
yeah,
Sir, you wasn't.
which one?
Sir, you wasn't 49 present, sir.
You should have spoken when I said. Okay.
USN 44 also present, sir. Sir, USN 41.
You guys have to come in time. You cannot just wake up because I take attendance. Then come. Yeah, who's the next one?
10, sir.
Who?
USN 10.
Sir, you was 38, sir.
41,
Because
sir.
Because I take you come, people tell you come attend big thega, otherwise you miss. Or in the classes, otherwise. Which one? Anybody else?
38. 38, sir.
Lucas?
Yes,
Sir.
sir.
Okay.
Sir, Kishore.
Sir, 26.
Present, sir.
So I asked you 2 times, you never responded.
Sir, I joined.
Why did you join late? And if you don't respond to questions in class, I'm going to put you absent. Please note that.
Sir, 26, sir.
You guys come late and because you call on the phone and then people join. Okay, let's start. We'll continue with overview of data mining and look at what are the best practices or the myth or mistakes one make. They are all basically summary of what we have been discussing so far. So we'll look at 3 of the techniques. First is the artificial neural networks. You have studied that in the last semester as well. So it's more of a repeat what you studied. Is considered one of the best ones because it is able to mimic very closely what a human can do. Or you can say mimics the behavior of human. So if you look at AI, original goal was, can it do what a human does in terms of recognition? And same thing, if ANN gets enough amount of data, right data, its accuracy could be way too high, very good. And that is how the ANN works. The way it works is the same way our brain works. So you have a neurons, you have a sensors, body has 5 sensors, and sensors feed data, what is called give stimuli to the neurons. And the layer of neurons, they process, communicate, and a lot of things run in parallel. And finally, some neuron would give a decision and recognize whether it's the color red, blue, whatever, or something of that kind. You have many layers in decision-making process. More the layers, complexity would go higher, but actually computation time would go higher. Implementation-wise, the algorithm is same. You have to run through these steps. Because of number of iterations and feedback process, computation time could be way more. And the way things work is, let's say you have 1 layer and the number of layers and the output layer, and you have a training data that feeds in, and you get the output, and you know that what output should be. And if your data doesn't give right output, not acceptable, then you probably give a feedback to previous layers, correct the factors. Factors is the way, so each input you have basically input and respective weight factor, input and the respective weight factors. You apply the corrections and then repeat the process. If still the output you got is not up to the mark, repeat the process, keep repeating it. So this is the number of runs that you do, the number of epochs that you run in a training. That could be way too high for it to get the right training. Now, when you do the correction factor, this could be small or this could be large. If it is large, you have a chances of not stabilizing it, still giving an error. If you make corrections very slowly, like in gradient descent, chances are it may take you much longer time. So one has to find a right balance between what should be the speed of correction factor and what is the iterations you like to do computation, because if a high number of iterations, then computation time could be much higher. Sometimes you decide repeat doing training, keep iterating it till error come to acceptable level, or you can say probably we done 1,000 iterations and then we would stop. But the good part about ANN is that if there's a bad data, it can still ignore the bad data and work with the bad data. With other data, the factors would work out and give good results. The other challenge or the intriguing point about ANN is the weight factors or the internal communication parameters that we use. These are very, very opaque to an observer. As a human, whether factor is 0.5 or 6 or 9, we don't know what this factor means. They're just mathematical numbers. Intuitively, we are not able to interpret those. But the reason ANN is popular is because it gives you good predictive accuracy. And good predictive accuracy means as good as what the human basically can do. But caveat is the training should be run large enough, and it's a large enough data for it to train, then only it could give you the good predictive accuracy. That's simple to implement because algorithm is simple. You know the algorithm, put in the steps, correction factor, apply, feedback, and continue. But the amount of computation could be high and not the implementation part. So that one has to really work with. As you said, if some data elements are not correct, it can still work. Gel with those or work fine. The other challenge is it needs large amount of training for you to be giving good prediction. Yesterday we discussed regression and decision tree. Which one of the two works badly if data is poor? We looked at two algorithms yesterday, and we said one of the algorithm could work with poor data, but another algorithm, if data is bad, your whole model would be equally bad. So which one of the regression or the decision tree does not work well if data itself is poor quality? Chatra? You guys need to speak, otherwise I'll go back and then end up marking your absence. Nitish?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, what is the question?
Sir, I could not hear you, sir. Can you please
What do you mean
repeat?
could not hear me? Then why didn't you ask me? I repeated the question 2 times. If you can't hear me, then you should ask me. Look, I'm not able to understand. Divya?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. But what's the question I'm asking?
Sorry, sir, I didn't listen.
Then why are you in the class? You guys are in the class for sake attendance, and what is the point? I see somebody listening to some podcast, video, something else, but putting attendance. Whom are you cheating, guys? Meghna GR?
Yes, sir.
What is the question I asked?
Sorry, sir, I couldn't hear you properly.
Good excuse doesn't work. You couldn't hear me, then why didn't you ask me to repeat? Gautam?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. What did I ask?
Sir, the question was among regression and decision tree, which one does not work if the data is poor?
Correct. Thank you. Now, can you answer the question?
I think decision tree, sir, because if there is a small change, then it affects the whole.
No, see,
data.
if it's a small change, the way decision trees are built, you first look at the most probable, most important variable first, and then start building a decision. So some bad record may not even come into the picture. So decision tree can tolerate some bad data.
Okay.
Regression does not, because we've seen yesterday, taken the example, the moment one bad data change, the whole curve has to change. It doesn't stick around. So algorithm is fine, but regression, if it is bad data, your model would be equally bad. So your decision tree, your ANN algorithms, they can work, cope up with the bad data, but not the regression. And that's one you need to look at. Next technique we look at is clustering. Can somebody define what is clustering? Kirti? Deepika?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
tree, but I couldn't hear the second word. What is? Can you repeat the question?
What is clustering and how do you define it? How do you build it? You studied this last semester.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So what is clustering?
Clustering is gathering of all the probable data in the graph and constructing a separation between the thing. Not sure.
And how do you build separation? Do you build only one separation? Do you build multiple separations?
Sir, multiple separations, sir.
So what method you use to build separation?
Similar data points are clustered together.
Good. So how do you define similarity?
I don't know, sir.
Abhishek?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. How do you define similarity?
So like in a data set, if there are 4 types of like columns,
Mm-hmm.
if there are like so a similarity as in a group of something, sir, like
So can you give an example? That's what I'm asking you.
maybe animals, like in a data set of animals, or
So what the values would be, and how do you say the similarity?
Okay, if there are a set of animal cat pictures, looking at the features of the cats would be grouped together and dogs would be
So
grouped
how,
together.
what the features you look at? Okay, let me put a question differently. Let's say I take your class of 50 students and I want to make 2 groups, and one group should reflect girls, other group should reflect boys, but you cannot use the feature gender as a feature. Then what are the features you can use so that you can classify these 50 data points into 2 groups? Is question clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Nigel, can you answer? You are not allowed to know the gender as a feature, but what are the features you like to use so that the class could be classified into 2 groups, 2 clusters, one correspond to girls, one correspond to boy? Nigel?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so how do you classify? What features you like to use?
Sir, hair for girls.
Hair
And
means what? Color of the hair?
sir, no, sir, length of the hair.
Okay, length of the hair. Any other feature?
Then,
What?
sir, beard for boys, sir.
Yeah, so you can say facial hairs, presence or absence. That's a good one, but does that always give you If boys are clean shaven, you might probably not notice. So that may not work all the time.
Yes, sir.
If I use the length of the head hair, will it always work?
Sir, the frequency of voice also would be a great feature to use.
Perfect.
The frequency of the voice, sir.
Frequency of voice, yes. There's a difference between frequency of voice. There's a group of patterns. So using voice analysis, one can determine it's a female voice or a male voice. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Perfect. So you can look at different features. You can look at the length of the hair. But when I look at the length of the hair or the voice as a feature, or I can even look at dress the one is wearing, or I can look at height and weight together, will it always give me a perfect classification?
So typically considering as a genome, that would give perfect one.
No, but I'm saying if I look at only these features, what we used, the length of the head hair, we look at the dress, we look at the voice frequency, because that can be easily be measured outside. Anybody could measure and do that. Will that give me very good classification? Or can there still be errors?
Still errors could be found, sir.
Yeah, so there may be some overlap because there may be some girls who may have very short hair. There may be some boys who might have a long hair. But you can probably say 90%, 95%, we may be able to do good clustering. So you basically use clustering in that sense. And in this case, we know, but in general, we may not know how many clusters to form. How many clusters are required? That basically becomes the domain of business analyst. How many groups would you like to create? 2, 3, 4, 1. One is always there, you have all data points. So is segmentation of the data points or clustering data points, how many one has to make, that require good business acumen to figure out. And not every time things would work out. If I were to use, let's say in the example I just took, girls and boys, if I were to look at dress type, will that work? Then normally would know by looking at the dress type, we can probably make out whether a boy or a girl. But if you're coming for a placement interview, all of you are wearing white shirts and black pant, something of that kind, then dress type may not make sense. So you have to look at what data is. If I were to look at, let's say, height and weight or something of that kind, then we look at similarity, meaning we look at the points, so we look at the difference in the length. And that is what will define similarity. If difference in length is very low, then we probably say we can define that defines the similarity. The difference is too large, but again, that data has to be normalized. For example, if I'm taking height and weight, and I take weight in grams and height in centimeters, then you see your height does not even play a role. Because if somebody has a weight 56.1 kg, other has a weight 56.2 kg, 100 gram difference will become 100 value, whereas height in centimeter difference would only be 5. So one dimension would simply overwhelm in terms of other dimension may not work. So you may need to normalize even the data points for cluster. Otherwise, things may not work. So one has to look at what is to be done. So normalization is required sometimes. How many clusters? That is not a given, so one has to know, and that is what you studied. K means clustering. That means you choose how many clusters K, and each cluster is identified by centroid. How do you define a centroid of a cluster? Typically, when you put a graph, how do you define the centroid? You basically say the distance measure if you're using the Euclidean measure, the Euclidean distance measure is the smallest among the points together from that. So if the cluster has 10 points, we took a centroid from whom the distance for each of the point in the cluster has the minimal distance, sum of those. You define the centroid. And when a new data point comes, based on the distance from centroid, you can determine whether it belongs to cluster 1, cluster 2, or some other cluster. Other technique we studied, reviewed was association rules, also known as market basket analysis, often used in often used in selling, especially the market business selling stores. Akshita, what is association rules? Can you give an example? Akshita, Amoga.
Sir, what is that? Some rules, sir. I didn't hear that word, sir.
We use a technique called association rules. We
Yes,
also
sir.
call it market basket analysis. We talked about it last few lectures. So what
Yes.
it is and how the business can use it. Give an example.
Sir, as you told, the wanted items like bread and butter, they keep it in different corners.
No, that is not the association rule. That is the impact of association rule, how to place them. But what is the association rule? Association rule is the customer who buys bread is most likely going to buy butter as well. That is the association rule. Now, whether shopkeeper keeps them together or keeps them separate, that is the business decision of the shopkeeper or store manager. And most of them, they do separate because then they're anyway going to buy it. Let them walk across the store. That is the one good example. You probably watch your other store item do that. All e-commerce sites. You watch movies, the recommendations. So all the e-tailers use recommendation. If you buy one, you're likely to buy something that item like. If you buy a cell phone, you're very likely to buy cell phone cover or case. Goes together. So they always recommend you that. They know the customer buying a cell phone is most likely going to buy cell phone case as well. So that kind of goes together. And those things you basically look at. And that is what basically association rule is. The challenge is you have to find out the affinities, how the different items can go together. And Netflix, when it started, it was first one among the movies. People who watch horror movie, once you watch one horror, they'll say another movie. If you watch a romantic movie, they'll give another romantic movie recommendations. And that was the claim to success. And why did they do that? Because more the customer buy other items, they probably get more revenue. And at the same time, they make customer happy as well because you're trying to tell them what their needs are, predicting their needs. The job of data analyst is to find the affinities or relationship between variables and then say they goes together. But you look at the genre, movie type, whatever, or item purchase, something of that kind. And that is the job. And you typically define the relationship in the form X follows by Y. That is, if customer bought item X, is going to buy item Y. If customer saw a movie of type X, is going to see a movie of another type, and so on, so forth. Or movie X, he uses a movie Y, whatever you want to look at. Now, there is no label per se that this kind of things. It's basically depending on the features, you try to group them together. And that is what the association rule is. In association rules, you don't have a right or wrong answer. All you define is the relationship between the variables or the items very strong or weaker. That's all you define, nothing more than that. And you simply assign the confidence level or probability of that occurring. Like bread and butter, maybe 90% probability, or something else, 80%. If you find affinity is less than 50%, probably not even worth it. Or something of that kind. Or sometimes you may keep differently that somebody buying this, they're not going to buy other one. So they know that they probably won't even try to sell. Look at those aspects. This thing basically came to the good fame about 30 years ago when somebody did book data analysis of a sales store and identifies that people who buy beers, they also buy diapers, or the very strong correlation. And that is when this basically came to the fame, this associated business. Having looked at our data mining techniques, now let's recap what is required. The key element is one has to get the data. And as we said, data preparation may require 60, 70, 80% of the time. Because once you get a data, you need to clean the data. And cleaning would mean you basically, if values are missing, fill the values. If there is a outliers, rename the outliers or correct the outliers. If there are inconsistent data, duplicate data, you may remove those. And once you have cleaned the data, then you do data transformation. Let's say we call normalize. As I said an example, if I were to take height in centimeters and weight in grams, then we have basically highly skewed data in measures because one dimension can simply overrule other dimensions. So like to normalize everything for it with an average of 1 or something of that kind, so that one variable, when I take Euclidean measure, does not play a heavy role. Or we're looking at currency, some currency in dollars, some currency in rupees, some in euros, you want to come to a common currency. That's a data normalization. Sometimes you create even new attributes, because at times, even the data does not have it, but creating new attributes might give you an easy way to classify. And I think we'll probably look at, by a simple example. Let's say I have a plane and I have a data. One set of data more like a circle or an ellipse, other set of data so we know these two are basically groups, but I cannot have any linear classifier which is going to classify. My classifier has to be something like another ellipse or a circle. And to separate this kind of data, it may become very difficult. Assuming this is my center of the, let's say my center happens to be, I move my axis, and let's say my center is this. If this is my center, this is 0, 0, and this is the x coordinate, this is y coordinate. I define the new z coordinate as x square plus y square. So 3 dimensions now, x, y, and z. Now with this 3 dimension, if you look at all these data points would have a value called r square, and this value would have a p square, and there is a significant difference. So in 3rd dimension, if you cut across a plane between r square and p square, it will simply separate 2 data, and a simple linear classifier would classify this kind of data. So one should be able to, looking at the data, that's where the role of business analyst, Ramazan comes in. Can adding a new variables simplify the job of classification? Or sometimes you reduce the number of variables. Rather than keeping multiple, one say some variables are insignificant, let's not worry about them. So maybe I'm looking at my cluster or something, I look at the length of the hair, I look at the, let's say the voice frequency, I look at the dress code, and I know most of the time dress code doesn't play a role, I can ignore it, I can reduce the variable, or do something together. And maybe a factor of, rather than height and weight, I can take a multiple of the 2, and that gives me a good number. So I can reduce the number of variables and still build my classification. And that is where the knowledge of the business analyst or data analyst comes in. How do you really structure? How do you define the data? And how do you use it? But to make any sense out of it, one has to basically follow ETL process, extract, get the data, transform to the usable way, and then load into business model and run things up. And this could be done automatically through whatever means, and that should be fine. Sometimes you can write your basic programs, or you can use some basic tools available. An author has given 3 tools. One is Excel, one is Weka, other is your IBM SPSS modeler. So you can compare on different aspects how the tool does. One is this commercial or public. Both Excel and IBM SPSS modeler is a commercial tool, whereas Weka is free open source. Excel is much cheaper. SPSS would be costlier, but the tool still works fine. In terms of number of features, Excel will give limited features and it works with limited data. Excel doesn't work with large data. If you load large data, maybe let's say 2 million rows of data tables, then Excel might become too slow, may not even work. So work with limited data, work with limited features, and you can probably add on, write on macro to convince, and Excel is mostly used by end users. A lot of small organizations, if you look at the finance department of any mid-sized organization, all their data mining, whatever they need to do, they do basically with Excel. Other tools, Weka and something, they give you extensive features and they can work with large data as well. Both Excel and Weka can work standalone, but IBM SPSS can be embedded into other software business suites and it works with them. The Excel can be used by end users, doesn't need to know basic data mining, basic tools, basic features, but other require some knowledge, some training to do. Excel would require minimal training, which works with one limited aspect of it. In terms of user interface, the Weka and your SPSS has a GUI feature, where Excel just text and data, you can run graphs. Excel works with Excel format, specific proprietary format or CSV file. Other one supports multiple formats. Weka's own proprietary format called ARFF, but it also works with CSV file as well. Now, when we work with the data, we should also know what kind of data we are dealing with. Is it the numbers? Is it the words? If it's the numbers, we need to classify. And we look at the data of putting categorical data and the numerical data. In categorical, we said it were 2 kinds, nominal and ordinal. What could the difference be between nominal and ordinal? Anusa? Anup? Yeah, go ahead, Anusa.
Sir, I'm not really sure. Difference between nominal and
ordinal and nominal. Anup?
Yes, sir.
The difference between ordinal and nominal.
Ordinal is a parameter variables.
Give me example. Asis.
Sir, ordinal data would be, they would have some sort of order, and nominal wouldn't have an order or a
Can you give an
relation.
example? Answer is right, but can you give an example?
Okay, I guess this classifying of genders, that would be nominal.
Okay.
But if we were to order them, maybe by the order of their roll numbers or something, that would be ordinal. That
yeah, okay.
The nominal data would become
ordinal. So if we're taking in names, let's say names can always be ordered in terms of alphabets, alphanumerical orders. then that becomes ordinal. So there's a different names, different values, you can put it in an order, but you basically can't do computations per se. And you just use the labels as it is, but you can define the order. Or, so as you said, the gender, we cannot say one gender is better than the other, both are equal, or colors, green, red, blue, depends on preference, that's just values. There's no order among them. But yes, ordinal would be where you can define the order. For example, we can sort by the names, by the USN numbers, but by themselves, you cannot do any compute. You cannot say, I can do a difference between the two, get a value or something of that kind. You can just use them to group, but can't measure Euclidean distance. Whereas numerical data, one can measure the differences, we can do the computation, and one could be doing interval. That means, like you want to look at times hourly basis. So time is continuous, but to bring into 12 hours clock, 0 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3. If you classify into particular interval, that's the interval data, or if you're looking in terms of real number values, it basically means fractions, which you call ratio. So any ratio of two numbers, so that becomes ratio data. So that one should know what kind of data one is dealing with, and then try to use appropriately. You're trying to build distances with ordinal and nominal data, that may not even work. We have to just use them order, but nothing more than that. How we look at this, let's look at what are the basic best practices for data mining so that one can get much better results. For a good data mining result, person should have both business skills and the IT skills. Business skill would mean to help you getting the how the business works, and we need to know the domain, because ultimately we are doing data mining to improve upon the business. So what is that we're trying to solve? What is the aspect we're trying to find? That's the business aspect of it. From business, if you look at the college, they'll try to figure out what is the next course we need to offer in the college, or which course we need to withdraw, so that we can get full registration. So business aspects enables you to form the right question, and that is the key. And we look at that. There's a common mistake sometimes you make. IT part helps you gathering the data properly from different places, process them. So one need to have both business skills as well as business domain exposure and the IT skill. If one doesn't have only one thing, you have mere limited use or may not be that much useful to do a data analysis. So look at those aspects. Once you define a problem, you simply cannot just run one-iteration data, like I'm looking to which courses to offer, simply use 1 year's data and done with it. I want to repeatedly run the model, do prediction, look at the questions, and then make a decision. And then only I can get the right solutions to be done. Looking at the data in the college, we know our MTech registration is pathetic. Maybe one or two candidates. So one has to figure out, is it really worth continuing with master's program in colleges like this? Because it's simply a drag on. Practically, there are no classes happens, no student comes in. For the namesake, it may not be worth to be running. That's the business decision one needs to make. To follow data mining practices, industry developed a model called CRISP-DM, which basically stands for Cross Industry Standard Practice Process for Data Mining. And it is defined as graphically with this. It has basically 6 steps. First, you need to understand the application domain, what business we are dealing with, and what is the data that you are basically getting. So understand the business domain, understand, can you know the data, what it is, and then where to get data from. You are getting data from which sources you're getting data from, you need to identify that part. Having identified the data, you need to do some kind of pre-processing, which is called data preparation, cleaning, transforming, removing duplicates, filling missing values. And then once you do pre-process, then you run basically models. That is when which algorithm you want to use. You build data mining models. Once you build a model, Then you evaluate, is your model right or wrong? Is the model justified, or do you need to go different model? And then once you are convinced with the model, then you have to deploy it. I simply cannot say I done take no decisions. And so if I made it figure out that the student pay the fees between 1st and 7th, not 31st, there's no point looking at bank and say, did the money come on 31st? So I need to put in, once I build my model, once I put in a decision, that has to become part of business processes so that business could benefit or make use of it. So let's look at in detail each of the one of the best practices. First is one should know the right business question. If you ask a wrong question, you probably get the wrong answer, is not be worth it. So one should clearly know which business you're operating in and what is the problem we are trying to look at. And that basically means answering which question would help my business grow up. For our colleges, it could be which is the next subject course to offer, or what policies or practice or methods we need to do so that our placements can go higher. Or it could be what we need to do in the college so that we can get into the rankings. So these are the good questions, or what we need to do so that we have no empty seat, we get a preferred students. So those are the right business questions for college. Similarly, for other business, one has to define what is the right question. Because once you get a right question, you get the answer, then it can get you big payoff. You basically business can prosper and grow. One has to look at that part. And once you build a hypothesis, you have to probably validate or even look at other hypotheses generally, even though you may not have data, but maybe you can do other analysis. For example, if college want to explore, should it offer biotechnology as a discipline? They never offered it. They don't have a data by themselves. So maybe they can look at data from other colleges and see, does it work? Or which are the audiences that will come in, or what kind of investment that takes place? You probably notice that if you look at your parents at over time, there used to be two professions sought after, engineering or medical. But the number of engineering colleges, the way they grew, medical college didn't grow not even by a factor of 10. What could be the factors? It may be investment, it may be technical resources available. So one has to look at, think what is that one want to do, think beyond the current practices and see, objective is, can I do something? What are that I need to do so that it can help my business grow? And then whatever data is available, I need to basically use that for mining and getting my results. Having known the right question, I should have the right data. If I don't have a high quality data, then my results analysis would completely be pathetic. And that one needs to look at. So it is important that first we need to know the right questions to ask, and then we need to get the right data, remove duplicates, filter, and make sure that data we are using it is workable. Having got the data, then next question comes in modeling. And when you have data, you look at different algorithms. Versus one algorithm would work versus 2 or 3. One cannot do blindly, but give a thought for given this kind of data, which kind of algorithms are suitable, and then trying to work. If you already have a training data, you can work supervised algorithms. If you don't have training labels, you probably need to take approach of unsupervised learning algorithms and build that model. But anytime building, running results, verifying it takes time, and don't expect quick results. Sometimes it may take a while, and that you need to have patience and wait. Having done the analysis, once you know you verified the theory, your model, the next step is to communicate to the stakeholders, the management, and then deploy the solution. Because if you're not deployed the solution, it becomes a simple mental exercise, which is a waste of time. But that doesn't give you any benefit to the business. So once you deploy the solution, it's not only one time to be used, it should become a continuous practice for businesses to how the students are doing. If you done follow some technique to improve the placements, then are you repeating it? Keep looking at it, and is that technique giving results? Keep mining, keep continuing, and that becomes a regular part of the process to make a decisions. Few things having done best practices. What are the myths about data mining? Myth is basically some decisions, or some occurrences believed to be true, but are actually false. So there are minor things. I'm not going to go in details. You can probably read, work out. First myth is I can get instant quick solutions. That is not true. Sometimes you may not. The whole data mining is which algorithm to use, and have you done the right problem, and do you know how each algorithm would work fine? Like we said, the regression analysis can give you very bad results if data is bad. We know that ANN can be implemented, but may take huge amount of computation time. So based on situation, you decide which algorithm to use, and then you get the results, and you may not got instant results. Second myth is my solutions are still not viable for business applications. No, in fact, business applications are the one they get maximum benefit out of data mining. Only challenge is, can one predict accurately? If I'm doing association rule, is my association rule good enough? Am I able to give a strong binding? Then business would be benefited. Third myth, that it needs a dedicated, separate database. Having a data warehouse is a good thing, but is not mandatory. This is most of medium to small businesses, they might even use Excel. There is no database, there is no data warehouse. They just work with plain simple data. That even works. Sometimes when you want to build a data warehouse, then you basically define data warehousing would require cleaning data, putting up, changing dimension, reducing it. So you basically end up asking question, what kind of answers one is looking at. In that process, you try to build. The process of building data warehouse may itself gives you good enough exploration, what you are trying to look at, what the right business questions, and then we get to the answers. Data mining can be done by people advanced degree. Not true. Like Excel, done by end users, they may not have any degree. They may be plain graduates, may not even be engineers. It works with them very well. Other myth is data mining works only for large customers or large firms with large data. Not true again. Small businesses also work very well. They use it. Yes, large businesses, they can devote enough resources, time, money. They may get more benefit, but certainly even a smaller set of customers can work with that. And those people who use Excel is a good example there. Similarly, it's just only statistics. It is a lot more than statistics. We develop new techniques. Otherwise, there will be no data science. We'll still be dealing with the statistics part. Having looked at those, basically, we now look at what are the common mistakes one can make. It's just a recap of what we have done. We select the wrong problem. If you look at the wrong problem, you'll get the wrong answers. So make sure what we are looking at. So if you are going for a clean river where you don't find any turtles, if you're trying to catch turtles, you're looking at the wrong problem. Or a simple pond, you will not find any fishes. So you have to look at where the fishes grow. Data mining as a data analyst, somebody is sponsoring, somebody is spending money, paying your salary, you're acquiring data, spending resources. So the person who is sponsoring your data mining has to be aligning with thinking of the management. And not in management thinks that we want to look at good placements for the college, and data mining guy says doing this will get you high marks. That is not management. So we have basically different thinking. So one has to make sure that what one is doing is in work with what management is expecting. In general, we look at aggregated results. But sometimes it may be good to look at individual data as well to help out. You simply cannot ignore individual data, but that time they will tell you what could be wrong with your result analysis. One has to be carefully choosing all the methods to get the right results and cannot do a simple layman chalta hai kind of work. Be done with that. Once you get your findings, it may be good or bad. If it is too good or too bad, just ignore it. That may not be true. Sometimes it may be really telling you a stark picture. It may be telling you that this year, because of pandemic, things are going to fail. And you might see, because people did the study, you might have a problem. So simply because something is looking very good, no. How can a student fail more than 20%? Or why something would go wrong? So you cannot simply ignore the good or bad findings. Those may look suspicious. Look at those parts of it. Sometimes we just take the data, run 10 different algorithms, whichever works best, this is the best algorithm. And the moment data changes, whole thing goes away. So intuitively, we should also know why a particular algorithm works well for the given data set. And again, you need to basically, once you find analysis, somebody may question it, make sure that people question it, that is the things correct? Are you answering the right problems? Just because simply you got the result to say, yeah, you are good, it may not work out. You may be getting wrongly affected and may not progress in the future right results. Sometimes what you measure and what your sponsor measures may be different. You have to be aligned with the tuning and looking at, for example, I'm saying that changing the teaching pedagogy would improve results. So both as a teacher and management will look fine, but maybe we got 1% improvement. We say, oh, we improved the result by 1%, but management may think we need at least 10% improvement. So the way you measure could be completely different. It may not work out. So look at those aspects, understand those, and then work with it. So basically, that's what for today. We look at things, analyze, make sure that you follow the right inputs, make sure you process, look at the incorrect values, remove them, fill the missing values. Should be very clear about your goals, what you're trying to do, and what processes you follow. And only then you'll be able to do good data mining. So next lecture, we'll start with data visualization. We have covered basically, but again, I would like you to read it so that we can make a better time. Thank you. Any questions? Please feel free to ask. Otherwise, we can drop out. Further, as we said, with the guest lecture on 17th, and I still haven't got any questions, what is that you would like to hear from Professor Anil Maheshwari? So think about it and send me by the end of the week so that I can consolidate and make sure we can make better use of the guest lecture we have got. After this, I put a schedule time. So those people who are scheduled an assignment, please join in as per your time so that we can work with it. Thank you.